Hello, fantastic people. I hope you're having a very peaceful day. Have you ever just kind of stopped and looked around or turned on the news and you just kind of wonder, like, what the beep happened to the world? I mean, you see these protesters, right? They're so angry. They're violent. They're like psychotic. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, what is going on, right? What's making so many people so violent and hateful? And illogical as well. Like, why are they attacking ICE agents when they're just doing their job, which is to secure our borders and make our communities safer, as well as save us billions of dollars in the end? So why are people attacking these agents? Where are they getting these ideas? Like, what is this ideology? Well, I'm pretty sure I know what it is. And it's something that my parents, that the boomers, either participated in or had to deal with in the 60s and the 70s as well. So, in order to answer that question of what the beep wrong with the world today, we're going to have to go back in time. So, grab your doobie and some cool shades, because we're going back to the 60s. Good Lord. Welcome to the 60s, man. It's a new age, man. It's a revolution. Yeah, man. We're going to do lots of drugs. We're going to talk a lot. We're not going to work, man. We're not going to shower. We're just going to talk. And then we're going to fix stuff, man. We're going to fight the power, man. So oppressed. There's so many oppressed people that need us to save them, man. Let's get going, man. But first, let's do some more drugs, man. Let's just take a nap first. I seriously have no idea how hippies behave, obviously. I did go to a Grateful Dead concert in the 60s. There were a lot of, like, college-age kids. And their parents were the greatest generation. They were strict. They had been through hell and they, persevered through it. The whole sacrifice thing is just absolutely amazing. I am just in awe of all the men. American men, can I just say this? Love to hate you guys. Some of you are just rotten. You're just rotten. But generally speaking, American men are beautiful human beings. Like, oh my gosh, if I could just go around hugging all these, these good ICE agents and police officers and military, kind of putting my life on the line every day at work. That's their job description. And they don't even get paid well. And then they get spit on and disrespected in the psychological warfare. Like, are you kidding me? Man, I'd take the hippies over these nut jobs any day. These are not the hippies. So these are the kids of those psycho boomers, right? Who were in, like, Weather Underground and, like, fully embraced this liberation theology that is just so anti-Christ. It is Roman Catholic Church. Empire. Cult. Give me a break. I'll tell you. Can't go to some of our cities again. This is the globalist playbook. They do this every time. This is why I have a hard time understanding if Trump is a globalist or not. Okay, space cadets. I forget what I was saying. But anyway, don't do drugs. Seriously. Drugs are bad. They're just bad. They're bad. Yeah, man. Like my crystal, man. It helps heal me, man. Like, come on, you guys. There's a part of the Bible that's dedicated to these. It's known as the Great Flood. So you might want to like not worship crystals. That's like in the how to be a human and make it to the next level for dummies guide. Yeah. So let's talk about the Roman Catholic Church and this liberation theology. Okay, so in order to understand liberation theology, you have to understand what had happened just previously. We had like Prescott Bush. He was like one of those people who was president without the title, right? And he was like back in, the early days of the Cold War and Eisenhower and Hoover. And we know about Hoover, right? Wasn't he the first FBI director that got ensnared in a honeypot, or actually, more specifically, a homosexual tryst? He liked to cross-dress. I think he hung out at the plaza, right? If only the plaza could talk. Man, I wouldn't want to know, though. It'd be like that scene in Garden State that just kind of like, really, you had to go there? That was just wrong. Ugh, my poor generation. So anyway, let's look at history through art, because it's just way fun to do it this way. Okay, CPUSA, you have Hitler's shield and Nixon, right? All right. And look at the people. Hammer and sickle. These are the oppressed. And it looks like, what's in the background? The Latino? I don't know. But that one dude is a rat. So who was that? Who was the rat back then? The guy in the hat should be Prescott Bush, but it's not. I don't know who that is. So that's old world money banker. That's what that is. Probably, I would say that's a Rothschild Jew banker. So if you didn't know about the Rothschild, they were probably Canaanites or Khazarians or something. Workers and oppressed people of the world unite. We have nothing to lose but our chains. And that's like distasteful. I don't think you could use this today. I don't think that would be successful. I think that would backfire. Like that's something like Don Lemon would probably use, right?
Headlines about people and death.
Mm-hmm.
Do I?
It's a rally call, like, come on, it's time to rise up. And there's truth in it. It's smart. This is propaganda, okay? Propaganda is very old. It's been used in this country for a long time. Even though we had anti-propaganda laws. Guess what? We had anti-child trafficking laws this whole time, too. Did you know that? Oh my God. We totally did. So, hey, whatever. They're smart. There's truth in it because we are being oppressed. These globalists, what they're doing with our money. And the other thing, we got to break free of our chains. Mental chains first, right? But give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God. And this lifestyle, this program that we're in, this system of government, U.S. government system, it is morally bankrupt. This is what the demonstrations looked like back then. Stop, layoff, end discrimination. You'll always see that this isn't about hue or ancestry. It's just been about, whenever there's a crime, it's about opportunity, friends. That's why the Irish were enslaved for 1,000 years. So nobody was going to stop them. They had total opportunity. Why does it look like the feathers are going out? My shirt? Charlie Kirkin on me? Can we joke about it now? He's alive, right? Isn't that what they're all saying? I don't know. I actually don't think that you should joke about it. I think he might be dead. I don't know, guys. It's terrible. Terrible that these things go on. But yeah, this is the trauma-based mind control. This is all about mind control, by the way. The CIA and the media had been operating together since the days of Howard Hughes, Meyer Lansky, and General Grover, was it? Yeah, I think it was Grover. Back to the art and the photographs. It's never been about Hugh. Bring the War Home, Chicago, October 8th through 11th, SDS. Certainly isn't good when you see this. This is a red flag, you guys, okay? Actually, respect the Black Panthers. This has nothing to do with them. Now this means something. And before, actually, prior, it meant something totally different. This has been a trigger symbol of defiance for the socialists and fascists, right? Students for a Democratic Society. Okay, now these were the college kids. Some college kids couldn't handle all this bullshit, and good for them. They were out spreading STDs in like the woods and grass areas, you know, and encampments or whatever. And then a lot of the college kids were being indoctrinated hardcore into these psycho-radicals, which was ongoing. And this is coming back. This liberation theology is coming back. It's in the colleges. It's been there for, I'd say, like a decade now, right? What was the protest group Students for a Democratic Society? So this is exactly what we're seeing again. Like, remember, God says what has been done will be done. There's nothing new under the sun, right? Todd Gitlin, former president of Students for a Democratic Society, shares his perspective on protests in the 60s and now. The goals when it started. Participatory democracy, a public committed to making the decisions that affect their own lives, with institutions to make this possible. Its members saw an American citizenry with no influence over the nuclear arms race or, closer to home, authoritarian university administrations. The organization favored direct action. That's what made it successful. Let's learn from this. And to achieve civil rights and the radical reconstruction of economic life, i.e. the redistribution of money into the hands of African Americans in order to fight racism. Reparations! Why didn't they just say reparations? STDs. SDS was increasingly suspicious of established authorities, which they should have been, and looked askance, at corporate power, which is out of control today. But there was no single political doctrine for most of its existence, and that was 62 to 69. SDS was an amalgam of left liberal socialist, anarchist, and increasingly Marxist currents and tendencies. So, yeah. That is what we see today. These people are SDS. Several, but they're more violent, many of them. More after 1967, SDS became partial to confrontational tactics and increasingly sympathetic to one or another idea of a Marxist-Leninist revolution. How did SDS grow so quickly? From fewer than 1,000 members in 62 to as many as 100,000 in 69. And these are Nepo babies. Tom Hayden, president of SDS from 62 to 63. All right, so he's the key. We'll look into Tom Hayden. 2016, he died at 76. Hayden will forever be linked to riots at the 68 DNC at the Democratic National Convention. So he's linked to the 1968 Democratic National Convention riot. Was arrested as one of the Chicago Seven, indicted for conspiracy to incite the riots that accompanied the 68 DNC in Chicago. Chicago's been corrupt for a long time. He worked in Newark. Freedom rider in the South, struggling for the civil rights. Intercollegiate Socialist Society, industrial democracy. He was hardcore in this. Michael Harrington and Robert Allen Haber were other founders, an offshoot of the League of Industrial Democracy. Okay, so preceded by the League of Industrial Democracy and the Intercollegiate Socialist Society. Okay, that's why it started with 1,000 people. Race riots. So, class tensions and cultural clashes. So, this is like itchy. I think it's like 100% plastic. During that time, Hayden observed the city's race riots and penned Rebellion in Newark, Official Violence, a Ghetto Response. 1967. I gotta read that. Ghetto, I think Jasmine Crockett. Or what happened to her? We should pray. Pray for her. Let's pray for the wicked. Hayden also entered electoral politics, beginning with the primary challenge against California's U.S. John Tunney in 1976, a Democrat. Hayden served in the California State Assembly from 1982 to 1992 and the State Senate from 1992 to 2000. He promoted legislation to deal with equity in the public university system. Yeah, you know what? That sounds good on the surface, but think about that. The public university system. They wanted more money for their system, their brainwashing system, their riotous system, their liberation theological system. Oh, this is Jane Fonda's ex-husband. That's why her name was up there. Come on, you guys. Come on. Give me a break. This is so ridiculous. They are so weird. 21. In 1961, the 21-year-old Hayden co-authored the Port Huron Statement, equivalent to the Declaration of Independence, for the student radicals and peace activists that were the heart of the New Left. Its growth was helped along by a structure that for many years was flexible enough to encompass diverse orientations and styles of activism. Its volcanic growth after the 1965 escalation of Vietnam War was made possible by its combination of zealous idealism and pragmatic activity that made sense to students. Protests, demonstrations, sit-ins, and marches. Why did the SDS effectively dissolve in 1969? Were the Weathermen, the militant radical faction of SDS, to blame? Remember Weather Underground? I don't know, my brain is like glitching. Under the pressure of the Vietnam War and black militancy in the wake of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, SDS leadership factions adopted fantastical ideas, believing they were living in a revolutionary moment. The Weathermen were the most ferocious, dogmatic, and reckless of the factions, inspired by Latin American. And again, now that's the liberation theology, that's where it came from. Southeast Asian and Chinese revolutionaries. But heedless of American realities, they thought that by stoking up violent confrontations, they could bring the war home, force the U.S. government out of Vietnam to deal with a violent domestic revolt. Okay. Are they trying to divert our attention from Palestine? I wish they would include Ukraine in that too, right? Bring the war home, force the U.S. government out of Vietnam to deal with a violent domestic revolt. What? They made a bomb? And then he went on to become a politician. Wow, that's a special kind of retard right there. Yeah, on March 6, 1970, a dynamite bomb they were building in New York City, intended to blow up hundreds of soldiers and their dates at a dance that evening, went off in their own hands, killing 3 of their own number. Wow. The Weather Underground, as the faction now called itself, went on to bomb dozens of government and corporate targets over the next few years, but the group was incapable of leading a larger movement. Though there were no further casualties after the 1970 explosion, the vast majority of SDS members were put off by the Weatherman violence. As the Vietnam War came to an end, no student radical organization remained. As slogan, the issues are interrelated. With community organizing projects, it tried to create an interracial coalition of the poor. It launched civil disobedience against corporations like the Chase Manhattan Bank, which was seen to be supporting the African apartheid regime, because it didn't really do anything, didn't change anything. SDS also engendered second wave feminism, though sometimes in a paradoxical fashion. Well, we see that today. What is this, the third wave then? Many female members felt both empowered and thwarted. They gained skills and experience in organizing, but were angered by their second-class status in the government. The group's romanticism towards the Cuban, Vietnamese, and Chinese revolutions after Trump won the presidency. They reignited all of this. That's why we started seeing, like, you remember the Summer of Love? So, okay, good background. Okay, so now we see a young Kamala Harris at one of these protests. How old is she? This couldn't be the 60s, could it? It does say racist attack immigration. Anyway, it looks like the Weasleys, Gryffindor are there as well. So that's interesting. So, interesting. Now, fast forward to today, we see symbols like this, right? Gotta break our chains, man. Break the chains. This is a weird website. That's for protesters. But yeah, this is what they were doing. Bring the war home. 60s, and it continued into the 70s, although it was like pretty much dismantled by the 70s. The website goes on to say, stop the kidnappings, report on the anti-ICE demonstration in San Francisco. So this fascism returns. That was in 2011. So that article I just read, dated 2017, might have been propaganda. I'm not sure. They were seeing a return of fascism. And that's what this is. This is fascism. That's why they have these tactics where they're...
And we're seeing the same tactic, these same signs across the
United States. Go on and on and on, right? They're fascists. They don't believe that
Shame on you.
rights to speech if what you're going to say goes against what they're saying. And they love to call people fascists as well. So yeah, absolutely. It returned. They were seeing it in 2011. And then it was full force as soon as Trump won the presidency. So, you know, we can go into the CIA. When it comes to these organizations and these rioters, there is mind control that is involved in this, for sure. Indoctrination, propaganda, this stuff all goes together. We know that they're with the media. Okay, so this stuff is all important. Now let's go into the bread and butter of liberation theology. And it comes out of Latin America. There's a lot of problems in these Latin American countries. They just can't keep it together because they are Marxists, they are socialists. They are using a failed system of government. Liberation theology is a movement. Oh, here we go. This is not true. Bing has immediate propaganda. Now they're calling it a Christian theology. It is not a Christian theology. It is a Catholic theology. So, I call bullshit on you. And then it immediately, okay, so listen, it says, co-pilot search on Bing. Liberation theology is a movement within Christian theology that emphasizes the liberation of oppressed people, particularly focusing on social justice and the plight of the poor. And now see, that's in bold. So if somebody wanted a definition, you know, they were curious, maybe they would just read that and then they'd be done, right? But you go into definitions and origins. You have to define it now, right? You can't just give a general, broad statement about it. Liberation theology originated in the 1960s among Latin American Catholic theologians, okay? It matters because Catholicism is different from Christianity. Catholicism took some of the principles of Christianity and incorporated it in with their pagan worship and their Satanism, basically, what they were already doing in the Roman Empire. Okay, it is not Christianity, and Catholics will even tell you, no, we're not Christian, we're Catholics. Do you see? Hello? They are not Christians. They took some components of Christianity into their paganism, into their Satanism, into their sun worship. Okay, they were worshiping many gods. Rome, right? They took enough Christianity in to draw the Christians in. Okay, because they saw Christ's power. That's why they were happy to kill Christ. Rome was happy to get rid of Christ because he was taking power that they wanted. So they brought in just enough Christianity into their cult to draw in Christians. And now look at them, how wealthy and large they are today. So it is based off of Latin American Catholic theologians, notably Gustavo Gutierrez, who is often regarded as its father. It seeks to apply religious faith to the struggle against social, political, and economic oppression. And Pope Francis is a perfect example. Pope Leo is continuing it as well. The movement emerged in response to the widespread poverty and injustice faced by marginalized communities in Latin America. So it's the same thing, right? Particularly during a time of political unrest and military dictatorships. Well, yeah, definitely political unrest. Preferential option for the poor, integration of faith and politics. Liberation theology advocates for active participation in political and civic affairs to address systemic injustices. It often critiques socio-economic structures that perpetuate inequality and calls for transformative action. Marxist influences. While liberation theology is rooted in Catholic doctrine, it incorporates elements of Marxist analysis to understand and combat oppression. So it uses Marxist analysis and Catholicism to understand and combat oppression. Hello? Has anyone in the history of mankind been more oppressive than the Roman Catholic Church Empire? I don't think so. As far as I can tell from all my research, the Roman Catholic Church Empire has killed more humans than any other organization or individual who has ever lived. So that's funny. Yeah, please, Catholic Church, tell us how we can combat oppression. And that's the reason I'm an American, is because my family's trying to get the hell away from the psychopathic Catholics who are killing everybody over in Europe and all over the world, all over the Eastern world. Give me a break. Marxist analysis. That's got to be like the most retarded math. That's probably like Common Core math, right? But you got this data, right? And then you apply this like retarded method. And a half an hour later, you solve the problem with your Common Core method, because you got like all these steps and you have to write out all your work. You have to write out the work because there's so many steps. You got to show your work, right? It's ridiculous, Marxist analysis. That's great. This has led to controversies, particularly within the Catholic Church, where some leaders have criticized it for its perceived alignment with leftist ideologies. Yeah, think? That's because Catholicism is very leftist. It is far leftist. I think now they're flipping back with abortion, because the Roman Catholic Church used to perform the abortions. The laundries in Ireland, where they would send the troubled Irish girls. These are generally girls who wouldn't conform to the system or were pregnant. And these were usually teenage girls, right? Like 15, 16, 17. I don't know about 18. I don't know when you were an adult back then, when they were allowed to leave. If they were allowed. I don't know. I mean, they were basically slaves, indentured servants. And the priest would come in and they would abort their babies. And we had whistleblowers talking for years, trying to get some kind of attention to the matter. And then finally, I guess they started digging and they found mass grave of infant, like babies, over at on the grounds of an old laundry over in Ireland. So yeah, looks like the Catholic Church is flipping on abortions because they used to consider abortions to be miracles of God. I guess as long as a priest was doing it, right? Is that how they feel about raping children? Is it a miracle of God if you're a priest? These people are sick, man. A sick cult. Catholic Church. Sick. You guys got to get out of that. Take the good. Get out of that church. At least stop funding it. They are wicked. And this is their ideology that we're seeing in America today that has been indoctrinated into these Nepo babies and college students and lost, confused, New Age youth. It is this Catholic social teaching. Pope John Paul II, right? Despite facing opposition from the Vatican, particularly under Pope John Paul II, many tenets of liberation theology have been integrated into Catholic social teaching, especially under Pope Francis. The movement has also inspired various forms of liberation theology, including feminist theology, and that's what we were seeing back in the 60s, and black theology. Again, we were seeing that back in the 60s, which address specific social injustices faced by women and racial minorities. So it's bullshit. There are no races. So how can there be racial minorities? Give me a break. In summary, liberation theology represents a significant theological approach that seeks to align Catholicism with the struggle of social injustice. It is a bad combination, you guys. Marxism and Catholicism. What would that baby look like? Oh, I don't even want to know. Oh. Okay, so can't unsee that. There's so much information about this. It's very, very hard to figure out where to start. I'm going to do my best not to make this too much longer. But Chicago faith communities say joy is key to resisting the feds. Okay. What we saw was, okay, so you have the mother of all harlots. That's the Roman Catholic Church. That's what Jesus, God refers to it as in Revelation. Mother of all harlots. The harlots are the denominations, the daughters of the Roman Catholic Church. There are so many denominations. And some of them are a lot closer to Catholicism than others, right? So you got the Roman Catholic Church and I think Orthodox. I don't know too much about the Orthodox, so I don't like to talk about it. I don't know too much about it. I have read that they kind of group the Orthodox churches in with Roman Catholic, but I don't know if that's true. Anyway, you got Protestant and Lutheran and all those guys, right? Now, in America, like they followed a lot of Catholic principles, like they worship on the wrong day. They don't honor the Sabbath anymore, stuff like that, right? The changes that the Catholic Church made. And so oftentimes they actually kind of align themselves. Look at Southern Baptists is a lot like Roman Catholic Church, right? They align themselves with certain things that the Roman Catholic Church practices. So this liberation theology started to leak down into the denominations, into Protestants. And that's probably what we see with Charlie Kirk right now and how they're, and LDS, Latter-day Saints, so Mormonism is like a huge proponent of this. And you'll see that LDS is causing all kinds of problems right now. And they're associated with Charlie Kirk and what have you. So they align themselves closely with Catholicism. And then, like I said, it trickles down. So it does affect everyday Americans when these little harlot churches start incorporating this Catholic liberation theology into their teachings and sermons, all right? So then you have Christians who are becoming indoctrinated by their pastors, because often they don't question the pastor. You have to be careful. There's a lot of wicked people hiding under the facade of Christianity, and they are not Christians. And if they're pushing this ideology that we're talking about here, you need to get out of that church. Or maybe switch pastors or something. Probably be easier just to find another church. In response to ongoing federal threats from President Donald Trump, Chicago faith leaders organized a surge of solidarity to protect the most vulnerable, alongside a deep pride for their city. Some of the organized actions share a critical motif: joy. Joy in this. This is what is going on. What threats? You mean sending in the National Guard? Have you watched some of these videos? What's going on in the dark streets of Chicago? In broad daylight? They're metaphorically dark because it's just crime ridden. The word of the day every day is crime. They're not going out and getting jobs. They're just stealing and hustling and a lot of dangerous activity. The cops are in on it. A lot of the cops are corrupt. They don't want you fixing it. No, they don't, because they're making some good money on the side too, I'm sure, right? Or they're involved in this child trafficking and, harming, abusing children. Now, Freemasonry ties into this because it's associated with the Catholic Church too. It has the same liberation, theology, doctrination in it as well because of its Roman Catholic Church ties. All right? So, Wicker Park Urban Village Church. Pastor Herrera said he's seen a significant influx of pastors and people rallying around immigration in their neighborhoods, cutting through anxiety with a newly minted solidarity. Know your rights. Hispanic and Latino neighborhoods can host Know Your Rights training. And this is what we're seeing, all these idiots. I want to see the warrant. Where's the warrant? They don't even know the law. So they're teaching them, they're dumbing them down. Big time. And indoctrinating them in absolute lunacy. So you're seeing these pastors getting involved. I actually just saw a pastor, I shouldn't be laughing, get pepper sprayed at a rally. It was a priest, I believe.
He looks fine.
So dumb. It's so dumb. We have representation from the full range of Christian denominations.
But we know why
Lutherans, Presbyterians, Episcopal, Unitarian, Universalists, Catholics, and Jews and Muslims. Faith communities who represent all those targeted communities have been coming together in a shared voice to say no to ICE, no to militarization, no troops, and yes to faith, yes to love, yes to peace, yes to caring for our neighbors. Getting emotional. It's the same thing. It's recycled rhetoric bull crap from the 60s. It's time to reignite the minions, It's like their version of the Clone Wars because they haven't gotten their tech straightened out yet. Immigrants have made their homes in Chicago since its inception. This isn't about immigrants. This is about illegal aliens. And these people these churches that are around this might be involved in the trafficking of children because closing the border and deporting criminal migrants, it ends the flow. If we're putting all these traffickers in jail, it's going to hopefully the intention is to eliminate the trafficking or at least minimize it. And it's just calling people, so according to 2024 data from the U.S. Census Bureau, almost 600,000 immigrants call Chicago home. They're not just rounding up immigrants. That would be so many people in our nation. They're rounding up illegal alien immigrants or people with expired visas or people with visas who are engaged in criminal activity. Okay, not just immigrants. So this is all propaganda. And here you go. I don't know if this is a transgender pastor or if this is a woman. Hundreds of protesters gathered at the side entrance of the ICE detention facility to block ICE cars from entering and leaving the ICE detention facility. So this was a little while back. This is before the troops went in and more people were arrested. And you see them out at night, and they're rioting, and then you have, if you look into them, you'll see that they're in like LGBTQ plus NGOs, and they're associated with all these NGOs that are propagandizing, exploiting people with mental illness, and they're indoctrinating them with this liberation theology, this belief that they need to fight for socialism and Marxism. We need a revolution. We need to change everything. We need to take over this nation and instill a socialist liberation theology, right? Catholicism. Catholicism, they want to take over. Communitarianism, philosophy that emphasizes the connection between the individual and the community. This is why women used to volunteer in the community. If you want a connection with your community, I suggest that you volunteer in an area that you love. You don't have to do it often. Maybe it's just a couple hours a week at your local library or an elderly center. Anything. This is how you make connections. These are real connections. Going out and screaming in law enforcement's face and cursing and behaving in a disgusting manner is not going to create any kind of connection in your community. You are just alienating yourself, okay? And you're being a real problem. You're a little terrorist. Catholic communism. Catecommunismo is a political and theological movement that combines Catholic social teaching with communism. What do you want? I'm Atlantic European. I'm not Italian. Give me a break. Bolshevism. Okay. Yeah. Now we're talking. Its adherents are known as Catholic communists, and the ideology has also been referred to by various other names, including Catholic Bolshevism, Christian Bolshevism, which is not accurate, left Catholicism, which is just like saying Catholic Catholicism, basically. The movement first emerged in Italy during the early 20th century. Early 1900s, developing significantly in the 30s among members of the Catholic Action Association. Okay, Catholics like communism. See, it's a shame too, because Rome was a republic, and that's why it thrived for so long. We have a Republican form of government here that we're guaranteed to. That's why we're so successful. That's why we've been able to continue to thrive. But they're turning it into a democracy. Democracy is essentially mob rule. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the mob, and they're trying to rule. So that's what you're seeing, a republic. They're trying to transform into a democracy, right? And then from there, from democracy, you're just gonna fall down that hill and break your crown, dude. Because it's gonna go straight to socialism, Marxism, fascism, all the isms, communism, and that's what the Catholics like. Catholics, they also wrote the Quran. Okay, they want to sow division. Cause so many problems. World movement of Christian workers. Come on. Stop saying Christians. It's Catholic. Because when you look at the definition, the Catholic Church's officially recognized association for Catholic workmen and women. But they're going to call it Christian workers. Because they don't want their name attached to it. Because it's no bueno. Okay, that's how they get you. And it's Christian, it's Christian. That's how you get those Christians suckered into it. And if you look up Bolshevism, look at the names on here. Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, got Trotsky. Okay, give me a break. It's ridiculous. We don't want this. This is what they're trying to force on us. Catholic social teaching is an area of Catholic doctrine which is concerned with the human dignity and the common good in society. Keywords: oppression, social organization, social justice, wealth distribution. It's just the same crap over and over again, you guys. This is Catholic socialism. Atheism, anarchism, communism, fascism, capitalism, Nazism, socialism, liberalism. Give me a break. It's a hot mess. You got Pope Leo the 13th. This is where Leo gets his name from. The current Leo, who's already a disgrace. I think the Catholic Church just made a ruling. We're going to have to do a video about that next. Now this guy, this Leo, was head of the Catholic Church from 1878 until his death in 1903, and they were talking about at the turn of the century, right? He had the fourth longest reign of any pope behind those of blah, blah, and blah. Oh, he was from Rome. Okay. Interesting. He's remembered for his belief that pastoral activity and political sociology is also a vital mission of the church as a vehicle of social justice. Okay? You see this crap? So ridiculous. In his 1891 Rerum Novarum, Pope Leo outlined the rights of workers to a fair wage, safe working conditions, so like the union, and the formation of trade unions while affirming the rights of property and free enterprise. That's funny because the Catholic Church has a history of stealing people's land. Come on, this is like the Bushes creating anti-trafficking laws. Because they want to indoctrinate, brainwash, or mind control you. Catholicism. Anyway, he was known as the social pope. Pope Sausch. Liberation psychology, or liberation social psychology, is an approach to psychology that aims to actively understand the psychology of oppressed and impoverished communities by conceptually and practically addressing the oppressive socio-political structure in which they exist. Essential concepts of liberation psychology include awareness, critical realism, de-ideologized reality, a coherently social orientation, the professional option for the oppressed majorities, and methodological eclecticism. I just think Clockwork Orange when I read that. Give me a break. You guys, why do people keep falling for this? It's so evil at its core. Roman Catholic liberation theology. Transmodernism is related to different aspects of Marxist philosophy having common ground with Roman Catholic liberation theology. Now, do you understand what we're seeing? These protests, these rioters, these psychopaths. This all boils down to the Roman Catholic Church. I believe the Kirk assassination comes down to the Roman Catholic Church because you got the LDS retards going along with this lie, this fake narrative, right? Got them, and you got the Catholic Church too. They're all on board. They're in bed together. But the whore of Babylon, Roman Catholic Church, is pulling the strings. That's why we see that the Illuminati, aka Freemasons, are involved as well. Secret societies are involved in that. So, that's what's going on. That's why. And we can find the who's. Like I said, NGOs. There are these LGBTQ+, these churches as well that are causing this problem. They're all over. And these organizations on college campuses. Best way to end this is to make sure that you educate your child before you send them off to these indoctrination schools where they're going to be exploited. And if your child has any kind of mental health problems, be very, very much on guard of what they're getting involved in, because they will be targeted. Jesus Christ, the bearer of the water of life, a Christian reflection on the New Age. It's not a Christian, it's a Catholic reflection. The CIA viewed liberation theology as a significant threat to U.S. interests in Latin America. Okay, now we're going to get into the U.S. government system. The CIA viewed liberation theology as a significant threat to U.S. interests in Latin America, leading to efforts to suppress its influence during the Cold War. Liberation theology emerged in the 60s among Latin American Catholic theologians. The CIA's apprehension regarding liberation theology stemmed from its association with leftist movements and potential revolutionary change. As noted in a declassified CIA report, the liberation theology was seen as a tool for Marxist-Leninist groups to promote revolutionary change, which posed a direct challenge to the U.S. dominance in Latin America. Okay, so now you have two wicked organizations here. You got the U.S. government system, which is corrupted. Okay, it's been corrupted since the Union victory. Actually, prior to that, the corruption led to the Civil War, you know. So it's way worse by this point. And yeah, so the CIA, it's like threatening probably their drug smuggling, their drug trafficking network, or so, who knows. So they're going to be competing with one another. So the CIA is going to employ tactics to squash it. So it's really interesting here, because you would think that the CIA is behind it because of the brainwashing and the propaganda, right? And the media influence. You had actresses like Jane Fonda and stuff like that, okay? So, but the CIA was actually correct. In a meeting on March 5th, 1971, President Nixon and his advisors expressed concern of the Catholic Church's swift towards leftist ideologies, with Nixon stating that a significant portion of the church was about 1/3 Marxist. That was in the 70s. So what is it now after Pope Francis? I mean, it's got to be more than that, right? And Leo's continuing this. So because I view Catholics as Democrats for the most part. They are leftists for sure. I would say more than half now. The CIA's efforts to suppress liberation theology reflect a broader strategy during the Cold War to combat perceived threats to U.S. influence in Latin America. By targeting this theological movement, the CIA aimed to maintain control over the political landscape, fearing that the advocacy for the poor and social justice could lead to revolutionary uprisings against U.S.-backed regimes. This historical context highlights the complex interplay between religion, politics, and U.S. foreign policy during a tumultuous period in Latin America. So they wanted the views of Latin America to be positive. They didn't want an uprising against these regimes. And again, if you look at the drug smuggling, even if you could just go back to the Contras. Oh, it's windy today. I have my big metal trash can drying outside. So if you go back to the Contras, you go back to Reagan, Bush, Clinton, they were all smuggling drugs, like planefuls of cocaine, okay? We have dealers who were working for the government, were taking the cocaine, they were making crack, and you had that one guy, Webb, I think was his last name, he stated that they were having $2 to $3 million days back in the 80s from this drug trafficking, all right? So these are U.S.-backed regimes, even though they're wicked regimes. The U.S. backs them because they're supplying them with drugs. And I'm sure humans, and there's, weapons smuggling going on too. So they want Americans to have a good view because these are U.S.-backed regimes. These are U.S. government buddies. And Catholic liberation theology might give the public an unfavorable view of these nations that are supplying the U.S. government with God knows what. One day in July 4th, 1944, as the Second World War raged throughout Europe, General William Wild Bill Donovan was ushered into an ornate chamber in Vatican City for an audience with Pope Pius XII. Donovan bowed his head reverently as the pontiff intoned a ceremonial prayer in Latin and decorated him with the Grand Cross of the Order of St. Sylvester, the oldest and most prestigious of papal knighthoods. This award has been given to only 100 other men in history who, by feat of arms or writings or outstanding deeds, have spread the faith and have safeguarded and championed the Church. The Church means the Roman Catholic Church. Although a papal citation of this sort rarely, if ever, states why a person is inducted into the Golden Militia, there can be no doubt that Donovan earned his knighthood by virtue of the services he rendered to the Catholic hierarchy in World War II. during which he served as chief of the Office of Strategic Services, the wartime predecessor to the Central Intelligence Agency. Okay? Donovan earned his knighthood by what? Services he rendered to the Catholic hierarchy in World War II. Who did the Catholic Church fund? They funded Hitler, right? During which he served as chief of the Office of Strategic Services, OSS. That's what the CIA was before it was rebranded. You have to remember, they rebrand everything. Especially like Mayorkas, who was involved in the trafficking from what? Since Clinton? I think since Clinton. His office. He was a commissioner of immigration and naturalization. That office was rebranded. Okay, they have to rebrand once in a while. It's public opinion. People become aware of these disgusting organizations. So they have stigmas associated with their names, so they have to rebrand them. It's ridiculous. So that was the CIA. He was the chief of the office of, he was the chief of the CIA. Crazy. So he won this knighthood because he was helpful to them during World War II. In 1941, the year before the OSS was officially constituted, Donovan forged a close alliance with the Father Felix Morleone, founder of the European Catholic Intelligence Service, known as Prodeo. When the Germans overran Western Europe, Donovan helped Morleone move his base of operations from Lisbon to New York. From then on, Prodeo was financed by Donovan, who believed that such an expenditure would result in valuable insight into the secret affairs of the Vatican, then a neutral enclave in the midst of fascist Rome. When the Allies liberated Rome in 1944, Morleone reestablished his spy network in the Vatican. From there, he helped the OSS, the CIA, obtain confidential reports provided by apostolic delegates in the Far East, which included information about strategic bombing targets in Japan. So weird. Why? Because the Roman Catholic Church wants to rule the world. That's why. And they're going to use this psycho, mind control, theological cult to help them. They're little minions, demon freak possessed minions. Since World War II, the CIA has subsidized a Catholic lay organization that served as the political slugging arm of the Pope and the Vatican throughout the Cold War. Remember, the Cold War, what was that, like 5 presidencies that we saw? It's absolutely insane how long they kept that going. Penetrated the American section of one of the wealthiest and most powerful Vatican orders, passed money to a large number of priests and bishops, some of whom became witting agents in CIA covert operations, employed undercover operatives to lobby members of the Curia, the Vatican government, and spy on liberal churchmen on the Pope's staff who challenged the political assumptions of the U.S., prepared intelligence briefings that accurately predicted the rise of liberation theology, and collaborated with right-wing Catholic groups to counter the actions of progressive clerics in Latin America. It was in this last regard that the CIA supported factions within the Catholic Church that were instrumental in promoting and electing the current Pope, John Paul II, whose Polish nationalism and anti-communist credentials they thought would make him a perfect vehicle for U.S. foreign policy. John Paul's recent trip to Nicaragua could not have been matched by any Americans for the contribution it made to President Reagan's Central American Initiative. Remember, the Contras.
I remember down in Central America, we were refueling
and
planes
the boys
full
that
of cocaine
were
coming
being
into the
trafficked
U.S.
and brought
and
to the
it was a
midnight
CIA
tours
operation
of the White
run by
House
the White
during
House.
Reagan and Bush and the Franklin scandal. Okay, see how the CIA likes to get involved in things. The Roman Catholic Church, Dark Night of the Soul. Every year in the late June, a bizarre ritual takes place in Rome. Men and women fly in from all over the world to participate in a ceremony that has been performed for centuries. Oh, it's just way too much information. According to previously classified State Department memoranda, Angleton recommended that the CIA fund Catholic Action, an Italian lay organization headed by Luigi Guerra, a prominent right-wing ideologue who had also been honored by the Knights. Guerra was a key operative in an effort undertaken by the CIA and the Vatican to barricade the Reds in the 1948 Italian elections. Only weeks before the election, it appeared the Italian Communist Party would prevail. The CIA and the Vatican both feared the Communists might win unless drastic measures were taken. At the behest of Pope Pius XII, Guerra mobilized a huge propaganda machine. More than 18,000 civic committees were formed to get out the anti-communist vote. The Christian Democrats scored a decisive victory. Catholic Action is credited with turning the tables. Ay, ay, ay. They're a secretive religious order with a long and bloody history and unique status under international law, but that doesn't mean they run the world. And who would that be? American Catholicism, the point at which the Vatican and the U.S. ruling elite intersect. Okay, you think about that. Who have been Democrats in the ruling elite? The Knights of Malta comprise what is perhaps the most exclusive club on earth. Stephen Birmingham, the social historian, has written, "They are more than the Catholic aristocracy. They can pick up a telephone and chat with the Pope." And who are the American Knights? Mother Jones managed to obtain part of the secret membership list. On it we found some familiar names. Lee Iacocca of Chrysler, Spyro Skoras, the shipping magnate, Robert Aplanow, the aerosol tycoon and Nixon confidant, Baron Hilton of the hotel chain, John Volpe, former U.S. ambassador to Italy, and William Simon, who served as both Treasury Secretary and Energy Czar in the 70s. At least one former envoy to the Vatican, Robert Wagner, the ex-mayor of New York, and the current emissary to the Vatican, William Wilson, are also members of the Knights of Malta. But there is one institution that stands out at the center of the SMOM in the United States. SMOM. Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Okay, the American section of the SMOM has about 1,000 members at that time, including 300 dames. They represent the vanguard of American Catholicism, the point at which the Vatican and the U.S. ruling elite intersect. Okay, that's right. SMOM, Sovereign Military Order of Malta. I wonder if that's what we're seeing with these riders. Are they SMOM? Okay. W.R. Grace and Company, J. Peter Grace, the company chairman, is also the president of the American section of SMOM. No less than 8 knights, including the Chancellor of the Order, John D.J. Moore, who was ambassador to Ireland under Nixon and Ford, are directors of W.R. Grace. All right. J. Peter Grace has a long history of involvement with CIA-linked enterprises such as Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe, which was the brainchild of General Reinhard Gehlen, who is also the board chairman of the American Institute of Free Labor Development, which has collaborated with multinational corporations and their client dictatorships in Latin America to squelch independent trade unions. Up to $100 million a year of CIA funds were pumped into trustworthy labor organizations such as AIFLD, whose graduates, according to AFLID Executive Director William Darty, were active in covert operations that led to military coup in Brazil in '64. During the early 70s, Francis D. Flanagan, the Grace representative in D.C., was a member of ITT's Ad Hoc Committee on Chile, which was instrumental in planning the overthrow of Salvador Allende. So these are regime change, CIA-linked individuals, right? And operations. It's crazy. These people are nuts. The American section of SMOM is one of the main channels of communications between the CIA and the Vatican. Okay, that's who's running things, guys. So, SMOM. What are their symbols? And let's see, or slogans. Let's see if we can make connections. Flags and emblems. Okay, so there you see the flag of His Highness the Grand Master. The red flag with the white 8-pointed cross encircled by the collar and surmounted by a crown is the personal flag of the Grand Master. It flies over the magistral palace and the order's magistral seats when he is in residence. Sovereign Military Hospitaller Order of St. John of Jerusalem, of Rhodes, and of Malta. So weird. The origins of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta in the United States date back to 1927 in New York City with the founding of the American Association. By the 50s, the membership had grown so geographically diverse that the Sovereign Council established the Western Association in San Francisco to encompass the 9 western states, Alaska, and Hawaii. The order continued to increase in membership over the next 20 years, and in 1974, the Sovereign Council approved the formation of the Southern Association. The Federal Association is headquartered in Washington, D.C., and today's members are found in over 20 regions nationwide. This is crazy. All right, guys. So that's it. I mean, that's like more than enough information of how we got here. Why people are so up. So pray for them. Pray for discernment for yourself. Make sure you're take care of your eyes. This is how we get discernment through our eyes. There's twice as many nerve endings in our eyes for a good reason. One of the things is discernment. We have to protect ourselves. I have to get other glasses. These are so heavy. They actually hurt. So I'll have to get something lightweight. I still want them to be ridiculous, though. They're just more fun that way. So take care of yourself. Thanks so much for spending this time watching my video. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a fantastic day. God bless.
Tactic. The people of the Congo are entitled to build up their country in peace and freedom.
Hold me close and hold me fast.
We were to go to Elizabethtown to attend a concert given by Louis Armstrong.
How much money do the Central Intelligence Agency has poured into the Congo?
I don't know. Are you prepared to say?
I certainly, of course, don't know. I wonder if it's quite honest to represent our policy as completely angelic.
When you
And seated out on the terrace was a man I recognized. He said, well, you have to assassinate Lumumba.
He used those words.
Yes.
But who ordered him?
He said, President Eisenhower.
In the UN, when Khrushchev took off his shoe and was beating that shoe, and the interpreter said, "How dare you!" Talking about America. Khrushchev was saying, "I love you," but it was the interpreter who hated America. You understand what I mean?
But did he have rhythm?
Rhythm is my business.
Конец могила колониальному рабству! Долой его и похоронить его чем глубже, тем лучше!
I think our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. And I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12, way down the line.